Okay, good evening, everybody. Today, we're going to discuss the Parshas Egel. It is a summary of the previous shiurim of what we've given last year already and from what we have given in Parshas Yisro. And I've added a little things that that I've discovered in the way to this shiur as well. So, first of all, I would like to introduce something which we've been working on quite a while already, and this is what is Avodah Zorah. And we already established that Avodah Zorah is more than just serving kind of statues which have absolutely no power. And actually, if you want, there is a very nice explanation of Avodah Zorah, which is basically categorizing it in three different parts. You have Avodah Zorah, which is Avodas Hashem, but which is Zorah, but it is Avodas Hashem. And something very particular, as we saw, is that you're not allowed to bring a Torah Zorah. So there maybe the word Zorah comes from. It's the Lesalul of Torah Zorah, V'oilo Mincha V'neser L'Sisro Olof. And therefore, when the two sons, Nadav and Avihu, when they were Makriv, Ifnei Hashem, Eish Zorah, Shelo Tziva Oisom, they were killed instantly, because this is what we call an Avodah Zorah. So Avodah Zorah can be, it is B'shas Atrak, it is mutter, and also only what is the Iker is mutter in the Torah, and we will see that soon. So this is the Avodah Zorah, meaning Avodas Hashem, but which is Zorah, which is not what the Bon Shem has asked us, which is strange in sense of that it is not part of the Jewish way of serving Hashem. And then we have an Avodas Elohim Acherim. So this is kind of, as we explained, that this is the real, there are other gods, and the next slide, maybe I can show it with you right now. For those who were not here in Parshas Yisro, this is the Share Eure, who brings down that there are 70 gods in the heaven. And he says that if you can read from the top, from the middle one, you should not believe those academics that don't believe, which they say, Avol, he says, no, yesh lecholas ki Hashem yisborach nosan koyach umemsholo v'shevet biad kol sar v'sar misore umois lodun v'lishpot es amoy v'es artzoi v'nikro shem, that I don't know what it means here, Elohim, lefi shehu sar v'shovet es b'nei artzoi. And then he explains on the other koyach b'da v'amin kein koyach b'Elohim acherim shem Elohim amim elo oisa koyach shnosan Hashem lohem lishpot ulefarnis es umoisom. I don't know what it means, but then so only there are certain forces that the koiches of the gods, so there are multiple gods, and they have some powers, and therefore a goy can daven to them, can have certain avodah, especially when it comes to parnosa, lishpoit ulefarnis, and the goyim can daven to them. And this is what the pasuk said, which we said on Friday night. So the idea that this is the elilim. So this is avodas Elohim acherim. So we are not allowed to. The goyim are allowed to eventually, or it is tolerated by Hashem. Benoyach is nera kolov. We explained that there's a difference between a goyim and benoyach. A stamagoy is stamagoy. He has to have a derech eretz, and then a ben noyach is somebody who is mekabel on himself the mitzvahs, the sheva mitzvahs b'nei noyach, and therefore once he is doing avodah zorah, he is going to be nera kolo. So because he already accepted the God of the gods, the Hashem Elokim, Elokei hu Elokim, or Elokei hu Elohim, if you want to be more correct, precise, and this is our God. So we are not allowed to. The goyim are allowed to. We are not allowed to, and this is avodas Elohim acherim. And then you have on the left side the third part, which is avodas, which I call eitz v'heaven. This is stam the rubbish. So stam goyim that give a force to they go in a statue and they say this statue is a god. So there you can argue. So the question is, where do we put the words? Chazal always use three words: avodas zorah, avodas elilim, or avodas kochovim. So where does the avodas kochovim go? Whether avodas kochovim is mamish like the eitz v'heaven, rubbish, or Avodas Kochovim is not rubbish, because in the Pasuk it says that the Kochovim and the Mazolos, I gave them to the Goyim. So it seems like the Rebbeinu Shalom gave them to the Goyim and not to you. You will not be under the Kochovim. So you see Proshet from the Pasuk that Avodas Kochovim maybe is Avodas Elohim Acherim. On the other hand, we all know that the Kochovim have no power. So basically, even if they have power, but the fact that I will bring a korban, or that the Goy will bring a korban to that star, will not help him necessarily. And so therefore, I'm not sure whether to put him on the Avodas Eitz V'Even or on the Avodas Elim Acherim. So Avodas Elim, it seems from the Share Euro that he puts it on the right side. There are others, but on the other hand, he says afterwards that the Lilim comes from the Loshen Mes, and therefore it's like rubbish, and therefore he seems to be putting it a little bit on the left side as well. So it's not clear. I am not yet clear. It's like I said on the slide, it's work in progress. And therefore it's not clear whether or not I have to put it on the Eitz V'Even or to put it in the Elohim Acherim. So these are the three words: Avodah Zorah, Avodas Elilim, Avodas Kochovim, and there are three different types. You have Avodas Hashem, which is Zorah, which is also called Avodah Zorah, and then you have Avodas Elohim Acherim, and then you have Avodas Eitz V'Even. What is important to know, and there is a posuk in Malachi, mamish at the end of the Nevi'im, the Sefer Nevi'im, at the end you will find the posuk in Malachi, Ki mimizra Hashem esharat mavoi, godol shmi bagoyim, uvechol mokom muktor, mugash lishmi, uminchet hoire, ki godol shmi bagoyim, omar Hashem tzvokois. So basically the Meforshim, you can look it up, the Meforshim say that even the Goyim that are doing Avodah Zorah, they are doing at Be'etzem Avodah to me, because they are doing to the God, but it's actually the gods that they are doing is also part of the, as the Shar Oyer explained, has Chelek even explains that they have the koiches from Hashem, from a name of Hashem. So, but the kinui, not the proper name, but the kinui. So therefore, by being maktir the Ktoiras to their gods, it's actually also to the God of the gods, which is Hashem, Yudke Vovke, Hashem Elohim, the God of the gods. And so therefore he says, they are doing it, you are not even that you're not doing. So basically this is what Malachi says. So it seems that he wants to say that all the avoiders from a goy is be'etzem and avoiders Hashem, but something which is for a Jew is not permitted. But for a goy maybe is permitted. As I said, a benoyach not. So this is a little bit the overview. The reason why I bring it is indeed because the whole idea of the Avodah Zorah that the Jews did with the Egel is in the right side, as the Kuzari will explain. And so therefore it's important to remember the reason why we were punished is because we did an Avodah Hashem, but which is Zorah. Okay, it's not, we did not do Avodah Zorah on the left side.
That the worst part of Avodah Zorah, the Avodah Hashem and Zorah?
No, it's not. In the contrary, he's very relaxed about it. He says the Avera is not so big, and I will hope I'll have time to read inside the Kuzari. The Kuzari he downplays very much the Chet to Egel. He says the Chet to Egel is be'etzem just an Avodas Hashem, but they needed to have something concrete of Hashem. They don't say that it was a different God. So they don't say that this is another God, but they say, no, this is the God, this is Yudke Vovke, but he is represented in this Egel. He is going to lead us in something tangible of Hashem. And this, since the Torah did not allow you to do that, only with the Oren HaKodesh, and then we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that. So this is the idea behind it. The point I wanted to make is, why was there such a big Yetzer Hara of Avodah Zorah? Now, you have to understand that by the other nations, when they did an Avodah Zorah, so when they did the Avodas to their Elohim Acherim, they received instant gratification. So they did, and then they received, because, that was the rule. If you gave a present to your God, the God were good to you. If you didn't give a present to your God, the gods were not so good to you. So basically, you could do shoichat. The Rebbeinu Shalom says, I'm not going to make shoichat, because the other gods, they can take shoichat. You gave them presents, then the other gods were very responsive to you, and then money would flow down. So imagine a Jew looks to his neighbors and the neighboring countries, and he sees they're doing these Avodah Zorahs. Interesting Avodah Zorah is much easier. Brings a fat cow, and then he receives a lot. And by us, we bring a cow to the as a oilers re'iyah, we bring korbanos to the Rebbeinu Shloim, but it's not guaranteed. Why? Because Rebbeinu Shloim says clearly, it's not your korban that I will give you. I'm not going to take a shoichat. It depends on your mitzvahs, how much you performed mitzvahs. And then you say, etc. Then, but if not, if you will din avodah zorah, then you will not have. So I can imagine that for a Jew, it is rather very difficult. He sees his neighbors not far. He can see his neighbors doing and receiving a lot of shefa from doing this avodah. And by us, we can do an avodah, but it still depends on who we are. It depends more on who we are than even on the quality of the korban. And so therefore, it was as everybody, as we have this need for instant gratification, we need to have a very quick answer to our prayers. And so the Yetzer Hara, this need, this want to also try to do it to their gods was very big. And so they said, maybe the Rebbeinu Shloim will not see, and maybe he will, but maybe he will look through that, and then I will be able to receive money and receive what I want through the other gods, because it was working not far from them. So there's always the Avodah Zorah is always normally an Avodah Zorah is always from the neighboring country that they took. And so therefore, this explains a little bit the Yetzer Hara of Avodah Zorah. And today we see that when we go down, it's when a person wants to have something, as we are a little bit in a Hester Ponim time. So in order to force something, to force a particular concept, we go to what we call kemeos, or we go to segulos. Sometimes we go to brochas from a Rebbe, or of course tefillos and masim tovim. But there is nothing that is actually guaranteed on the etzem shaila that you asked. As we say, all the tefillos are heard, but we don't receive always the answer. And the kemeos is something which forces. It's trying to force, even if I don't deserve it, but I use the names of Hashem in order to force the situation to change in the better. And the Sgulas is the same thing. And then the Rebbe's brocha is a little bit less, because there is also, you need to have a base kibul for the brocha. And then you have tefillos and masim tovim, which Chazal tell us is what will help. So basically, you see very quickly that we have transferred this need for instant gratification to some things that we tend to do in order to force our faith for what we expect to happen. In terms of history, to understand a little bit more the historical evolution in how things have evolved, and that's very important, is the following. You have a certain period where things were very clear, where there was no atheism, because basically it's not because they were primitive or stupid or not very intelligent, not very academic. No, they believed in God because it was clear. The Shechina was somehow visible. The Shechina, when it says, when we just learned in Chagiga, when you come to see the Rebbeinu Shloim. So basically there was something to see. What they saw, we don't know, but they saw something. Whether there were clouds that were maybe hovering over the Beis Hamikdash, as it was by the oil from Zorah, or the oil moed from Moshe Rabbeinu, or they saw, or it was Nisim Gluim, but they saw something which was seeing the Shekhinah. And the second part is this visibility, this clearness was also that the health and the wealth, if you want, were directly correlated with our actions. Oh, Yom Shemoya, then you will have, but if not, then you will not have. This Moshe Rabbeinu writes it, it's a guaranteed in the Posuk. So basically, there was a time when this was like that. When the Jew was doing mitzvahs, he saw directly shefa. When he was doing averas, he saw directly a problem.
Also with the snake from Moshe Rabbeinu, when you used to look upon it, and the health would be okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there were direct actions. So we lived in the time when there was no atheism, because by definition, everybody was helped by something. The Goyim, if they were serving their gods properly, and the Jews, if we were serving our God properly. To them, it was more maybe by korbanos, By us, it was with Masim Tovim, and it was with what Hashem says how to do, what to do. This is what we have. Therefore, we have a Torah. The Torah was a way of also understanding, not only as a way to know what to do, but also to understand if something went good, if something went bad, Chas v'sholem, to know what did we do wrong in order for this to happen. So it was directly a manual that can help you in the direct understanding of why are we now suffering, what did we do wrong. And that's why the Nevi'im always had to refer to that, to the Torah's Moshe. So this is the period of cleanness. Then the Beis Hamikdash was Chorov, and the Shechina disappeared. The only thing that we had was the Nevi'im. So we had a kind of a semi-darkness. Okay, it's a semi-darkness, meaning that we did not see the Shechina anymore. So the Shechina disappeared and never came back. But we had the Nevi'im. And even the second Beis Hamikdash was basically clearly, and this is what I learned from Omer, who I don't know if he's in the call tonight, but he explained me very nicely, and I have to check it up before Purim, is that the second Beis Hamikdash was not built like what Yecheskel gives us the measurement. It was built like the first Beis Hamikdash, meaning that it was known when they were building it that it was not the last Beis Hamikdash. It was not the Beis Hamikdash HaNitzchi that will be, but it was a Beis Hamikdash that was like kind of a compensation for we need the Beis Hamikdash. It's a mitzvah, so we did it. But the Shechina
it was built differently. It was 100 amos high in space.
No, but that's later on, the Hordus. That's after Hordus. But the second Beis Hamikdash, the first version, was not built like Yecheskel. The whole Yecheskel has a different architecture of the Beis Hamikdash, and this was that will be in the third Beis Hamikdash will be like in Novi Yecheskel, but in the second Beis Hamikdash was built. I guess the first version was built like the Beis Hamikdash of Shlomo Melech, and then Hordus came and he built it and he increased it a lot. Okay. Unless I make a mistake, but this is how I understand it. Yes, Yuda?
Yes, could be.
Okay. And then the Nevi'im, the last Nevi'im, when the Nevi'im also saw that it would be the last, we won't even have Nevi'im. When the Nevi'im stopped, it became a time of full darkness. And I mean darkness in the sense that we do not feel anymore, we don't see, we don't have any communication channel with Hashem. And so what do? How do we serve Hashem in such a context? And this is one of the things that the Torah does not give us. The Torah tells us the whole time, you will build, and this will be the Avodah. The Torah does not tell you, but if it will be destroyed, now then start something else. Then you have to do something else. No, the Torah tells you will go and you will suffer and you will din Avodah Zorah, eventually make tshuva, and then you will come back. But the Torah does not tell me what I have to do. What is my avodas Hashem once I am in the Golus? And so the Anshe Knesses Agdola had to confirm, had to build kind of the Judaism that will be necessary in a time when there will be completely darkness. So what we will do? So in the time we could bring a korban at the Beis Hamikdash, Anshe Knesset told us exactly what to do as once this new era started until the Moshiach will come that will bring us back to the cleanness. So this is where the Anshe Knesset Agdola created the whole Judaism that we have today. The reason why it's important also is that the Anshe Knesset Agdola was Shimon HaTzadik, or Mishore Knesset Agdola, and then you have Antignois Ish Soichoi, and he is the one that actually instituted two very important parts. The first part we already discussed, that the Chachomim became Rabbonim, they became Rav, Klope, Eved, Veraboy. They had the full authority over the Torah. So Torah La Bashomaim Hi, that's kind of a putsch, yeah? So in beginning, the Nevi'im, there were Nevi'im, so the Nevi'im were controlling our understanding of Judaism. So what we did is, since there was no Nevi'im, and otherwise we are lost, so he said that the Torah La Bashomaim Hi, and even if the Chachomim, for example, are contradicting each other, it's Elo ve'elo divrei Elokim Chaim, and Afilo ala Yamin shu Smol v'ala Smol shu Lumin. So basically, what they did is a very big kind of recuperating the Torah, Eino LaKodesh Baruch Hu, from the Churban, Eino LaKodesh Baruch Hu, Elo Dalet Ames Ba'alocha. So Rebbeinu Shalom is very little, basically, what we give to Rebbeinu Shalom, we take over. And the first push that is visible, really, as Antignos did, is he created a new calendar. So according to Rabbeinu Hananel, Antignos changed the calendar. He explains he changed the calendar from what we have today to the Al-Piri, and then he changed back to how we have today, but that's another discussion I'm not going to give this year. But in any way, he's the first one, the Rabbeinu Bachai brings him, Antignos changed the calendar. So it's like saying, from now on, even the engine of Judaism, which is a calendar, the calendar is the starting, is really the engine of the whole Judaism, where all our holidays, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Pesach, Sukkot, etc., all these things are based on the calendar. He said, I'm going to change. Suddenly he decided to change the calendar to make a point. This is what the Rambam called Dikduke Soifrim. It was a time when humans were allowed to create concept, Isurim, the Yukim from the Torah, and not things that were receiving from Sinai, but really new inventions, as the Rambam calls it. That's why he says these are divrei soifrim, dikduke soifrim. Not everybody agrees with the Rambam, but in any case, this goes well with the Rambam's understanding. So this is a very important element. So we don't have Nevi'im, therefore we have to give to the Chachomim. And the second thing is, we don't see the Shechina anymore. And so that's why he said on Tignois, is Oimer al tiu kavodim amesham shemesorav al mekab al menas lekabel pros elo tiu elo ever avodim kavodim amesham shemesorav shelo al menas lekabel pros. So this is why does he say that? Very simple, because until then we were living with a visible correlated action reaction. This was directly what you did good, you had good. You didn't go, you didn't have good. Since this disappeared and we are coming in a phase of full darkness, so he said, no, Judaism, you should know. You should know that now starts an Avodah where it's not anymore correlated, but it should be that you should have Yiras Hashem. Yiras Hashem meaning that you should know that eventually you will receive a schar and eventually you will receive a punishment, but you should know that it is not directly. So don't do it by expecting it directly to happen, because otherwise, this is not how the new way of Judaism will be. And therefore, he made a big revolution in the whole approach of Judaism, and as everything, every new institution, everything that is new, that is starting to grow by Jews, is always comes with opposition, and it's Doikim, Tzodok and Baitus were very upset on him, because they were, as we already said, they were the Kanuim. They said, why? We minig avosenu biyodenu. We do as we always did, and they were very much against these Prushim. That's why the Prushim are called Prushim, is they are a spin-off. They are the ones that actually changed from how it was to how it became what we have today, in order to be able to survive, because otherwise Judaism would not survive. And the proof is that the Prushim are the only part of Judaism that is really still today. From the Tzdokim, the Baitusim, and even the Karoim, there's not much left. And because this whole idea had to be instituted, and of course the power, we have received the power, because the power were given by the Nevi'im during the Anshe Knesset Agdoilo. So we have received the power, and as we said, we have to do what Sisso, you should do as the Shoftim tell you, afila ala yamin shu smol, vala smol shu yamin. So basically, we have to follow Chazal, even if it sounds a bit like, oh, what's going on? But this is not our problem. The Rebbeinu Shalom, this is Rotzon Hashem, as the Rebbe Elchanan Wasserman explained. But basically, this is an important moment of transition that happened with Antignois. What is also interesting is that once the darkness started, when it was not anymore clear, even by the Goyim, they did not see anymore anything that they were giving korbanos, and nothing happened, because since the Beis Hamikdash disappeared, the Shechina disappeared, and everything disappeared, not only by us, but by all the Goyim as well. And so therefore started also the intellectual development of concepts, of way to live from the Greek philosophy. It's very interesting that it started more or less at the same time as what we call the Torah Shebal Peh. Also, the Greek philosophy has also started at the time, because before that there was no need to be in a philosophical mood, because we saw there was a clear, everything was clear. The moment that things became dark, then people had a need to develop concepts and starting to think and to develop the intellectual tools in order to be able to live a normal life, fulfilling life. And what means a fulfilling life? What means happiness? What is expected from us? These are the questions that everybody asked. Only then, before, people did not ask because they saw straight away when they did something. They were living with God, with their gods, or with living with Hashem. Everything was clear, was visible, and so therefore people did not have any questions. So, if you want, there were, like I said, 3 periods: the clear correlation and even causality between an action and a heavenly reaction. Then we were living the Torah. Limud HaTorah was not as much as necessary in the sense that, of course, v'gisu b'yomim v'laylo v'limadetem mois, but it was more as v'limadetem moisum u'shmartem la'soisum. It was more learning in order to perform, and the second part was v'shinamtem levonecho, in order to transmit. All religion can only survive if they were transmitted to the next generation. Otherwise, it stops at one generation, the first generation. So you have to transmit. This is the mitzvah of Limud HaTorah, was more to transmit and also to learn the halachas. But we were living the Torah. Basically, it was clear, chazer, you're not allowed to eat. Of course not, because if you're going to eat, you're going to suffer. As the Ibn Ezra explained, the land that we lived in did not accept if a human being was eating chazer. That was clearly, the people were ill. Ibn Ezra says there were no need for doctors, because you just had to make tshuva and you became well. So basically, it was a clear period where there was a strong causality. And then there was the semi-darkness, there was prophecy, but a delayed reaction. Then the whole idea was the listening to the Torah. That there was more to understand and listening to the Novi and trying to understand what was going on. Once the period of full darkness starts, the whole idea that we have to learn that we're not allowed to eat chazer. And by learning that we're not allowed to eat chazer, we are actually living this Aveira. We are living in our minds. We already explained that we are living in our minds. We are learning all the halachas of by our neshama porim sfasenu, meaning everything that we think and we speak and when we learn the Torah, we are making it real. But we're only real in our minds, not in as a physical law like gravitational law. But it is nearly as gravitational law as long as we imagine it as being an isur, a heter, chayev, potur. So in our mind we are playing this correlation, but it's in reality in the field it's not like that. We don't. We are living in a time of darkness, but in our minds when we learn a Gemara, we're reviving it, and therefore we're making the Torah again concrete and living. But only in the yeshivas, only when you're learning the Gemara, then it becomes living, and therefore it's the focus on learning Torah started more in the time of the full darkness. And these are the Avodas Hashem, which is Das Hashem. I'm not going to elaborate on that because it's already late. Now to come back to the sin of the Egel. So what is this Aveira of the Egel, the Chet? So the Kuzari explains that the Jews had this need to have something tangible, and he explains it is the same. He compares it with the need that we have today in having a Beis Medrash. He says having a Beis Medrash, he says, in the time of the first Beis HaMikdash, this would have been destroyed. The Kanoim would go and they would destroy a Beis HaMedrash. How dare you build a Beis HaMedrash when there is a Beis HaMikdash? When this is Avodah Zorah, and this is Avodas Hashem be'ofen Zorah. That's what the Kuzari explains. So basically, he says that the only thing is that we do today, that we are building Beis HaMikdash, as he explains, is because we don't have any other choices. It's the only way that we can keep Judaism alive is by recreating the Beis HaMikdash in the Beis HaMedrash. And all the dinim of a Beis HaMikdash is also in the Beis HaMedrash. You're not allowed to pass, etc. A lot of dinim are similar to the Beis HaMedrash. And also the Oren HaKodesh has by us also this special holiness. And this is a Choyren Isur, because this is mamish, you are kind of megashem the Shechina in a particular place, in a particular box, and even on a Sefer Torah. So he explains that this already we see in the Posuk the Posuk, the Klal Yisrael also said when they saw the Oren HaKodesh, Moshe Rabbeinu, or in the Torah says, they said, Kumu Hashem, or Shuvu Hashem. Who is Kumu Hashem? He was talking to the Oren. So therefore, the idea is that we can sometimes associate an Oren to the Rebbeinu Shalom, or associate Rebbeinu Shalom to an Oren. And so therefore, certain things that has been done already in the Torah, we are also allowing ourselves to do. Okay, but in theory, the whole approach that we do today of davening 3 times, which Keneged HaKorbanos, and etc., these are not parts, these are lochoire in the time of the first Beis HaMikdash would have been considered as a pure Avodah Zorah, and like the Egel. But he explains that the Egel is not such a big sin at the end. As he said, there were not so many that people that actually from 600,000, there were only 3,000. And he said, straight afterwards, the month continued going. So the Rebbeinu Shalom was upset, but not so upset as proper Avodah Zorah. And so therefore he explains that that he's downplaying a little bit the Egel, because it's more, like I said, an Avodah Zorah from the right side. The first definition is Avodas Hashem b'derech Zorah. The Rambam, however, we all know the Rambam, and the Rambam says it is a capital sin to associate the Rebbeinu Shalom with something which is megusham, something which has gashmius. It's one of the 13 ikrim from the Rambam, is not to think of Hashem as being something which is megusham. This Rambam has created a lot of problems for him. Because of that, there were 2 big opponents, Rabbi Shlomo Minohor and Rabbi Moshe Tako, in the Sefer Ksaf Tomim. I didn't see it inside, but if you want, you can find it in the Sefer from Torah Shleimo, and there he brings it down. He has like 50 pages where he goes through all the different shittas of the attacks that the Rambam suffered for saying that the Rebbeinu Shalom, everything that is in the Rebbeinu Shalom is actually only Ruchnius. There's nothing Gashmius in the Rebbeinu Shalom. You have to understand that this has created in France such a big revolution that they banned his forum, that you're not allowed to read the Moire Nevuchim and also the Ilchos Yisodat Torah. And they say that because of that machloikes that was between the people, between the Jews, a lot of Sifrei Torahs and Gemorahs were burned in France because of that machloikes. And the whole idea behind that is that how can you say, the Rambam, that the Torah says Mefurah, there is a Yad Hashem, there is a Ein Hashem, there is a Etzba Hashem. How can you say the Rebbeinu Shalom Yoshev al Kisei Rom Veniso? How can you say that the Rebbeinu Shalom does not sit, does not have a hand, if it says in the Torah that it is like that? Plus also the Gemorahs, hundreds of Gemorahs, thousands of Gemorahs that speak about Hashem, and he put on tefillin, and the back tefillin is there has tefillin on his head and tefillin on his arm, and what are those Gemorahs? The Gemorah never says that there isn't that it is only a moshel. The problem is if you start saying that these things are misholim, then there is no more border. How will you stop the Jews then, who are a little bit more modern, to say, if this is a moshel, then maybe Loisef Ashel Gedi Bechalevimo is also moshel, and maybe I don't know, all the other halachas that we are learning are only misholim, but they are not really averos. And then the whole Judaism, all Orthodox Judaism disappears, because you don't have anymore a clear line of when it is a moshel and when it is not a moshel. And so they were attacking him very much. There's only the Rambam himself found one Gemara. We will learn it this week, I think, in Chagig, in Daf Hayomi. It's in Daf Tezvov. It's maybe Kedai when we'll come there, is to remember that this is the very famous, and actually in the Avodah, the Taka bring it down as they refer to it in the Rambam in Akdoma to Perush HaMishnayos on Chelek. But he does say that he does say that the Rebbeinu Shalom, that there is nothing up there in heavens. There is 1 second. Oh, le male lo yave lo yeshiva veloi tachrois, veloi eure, veloi ipui. So there is no yeshiva, there is no etc. And so this is the only Gemara. In all the Gemaras, where the Gemara clearly says that there's one Gemara in Chagiga where Taka says that the Malo there isn't any sitting and there is nothing. It's only Misholim, it's only Ruchnias. We don't understand what it is. So the Rambam based on this one Gemara, while there are thousands of Gemaras which clearly says Ma'achoire Apargoid. So there is a concept that they saw Moshe Rabbeinu nearly touched he didn't touch the Kisei HaKovod, the Tanamus there, but the Gemara in Sukkah. So you have here all kind of Gemaras which are saying that there is something, and the Rambam says it clearly, and he even puts it in the Ikrim. The Raiva Taka disagrees with him. He agrees with him on the concept, but he disagrees with him on the fact that it should be in the principle of faith. If somebody believes that he's an apikoir, doesn't have chelik mabo, why? If somebody is naive, from a person that learns the Torah as it says, and the Boin Shem has a hand and the Boin Shem has an eye, and why? What is wrong? How can you blame him just because he didn't learn this Gemara in Chagiga? You can't blame him. So therefore, but it's something that today we can't even understand why they would burn or not burn. They will be machim the Rambam for this, because this is something that we already were raised as a little child, that this is how it is, and therefore it's we don't understand. But at the time of the Rambam, this was rather revolutionary, and a lot of, like you see, a few Rishonim attacked the Rambam for having this type of opinions. And there is one more element where I wanted to say also, is that in Hasidus, there is such a concept as well, where the Rebbe, for example, the Rebbe also is a kind of a representative and nearly the Atzmus Elokus. I will read to you one of the Mamrim from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Zecher Tzadik Levrocha. He says, Ich hab nicht gesehen, es soll sich azoi reden mefurish in Hasidus. I have not seen it that it's written like this, mefurish in Hasidus, nor es is a hergish, but it is a hergish, I feel it. B'meile, wer es will margish sein, soll margish sein. Those who want to feel like me can feel like me. Und wer nicht, der was will nicht, those who don't want, will ich sich mit ihm nicht sparen. I do not want to disagree with him. Yehi lo asher lo, he should have what he has. But this is my opinion. What does it mean? B'meile is doch nicht shy zu fragen nach Kusche wegen Mamutz. So he explains, sorry, I should go back to what he says before. So he explains, what does he explains? Der Emes is aber nicht so. Geshem wie Israel, Oraise ve Kutshu Bericho Kulochad, since the Oraise and Kutshu Bericho and Israel are one, nicht nur was Israel miskashrim bo Oraise ve Kutshu Bericho, no tak echad mamish, also ist euch die Iskashus von Chassidim mit den Rebben nicht wie zwei Sachen, was vereinigen sich, noch es wird kulechad mamish. In das Rebbe, und der Rebbe ist nicht kein Memutze am Mafsik, nor am Memutze am Mechabe. Bemeile ist doch bei Achosid mit dem Rebbe, mit dem Eibischte Einsach, in explains, Bemeile ist doch nicht scheich zu fragen, nach Kusche wegen am Memutze, wie bald das ist a Summe allein, wie hat sich reingestellt in a Guf. So he says that it's like the Kutshu Berichu is puts himself in a Guf. So the kind of what he wants to say us here is that the Kutshu Berichu really goes into the Guf of the Rebbe, and then we are connecting together with the Rebbe. So to be to confirm the Kutshu Berichu Yisrael V'Oraise Chadhu. By the way, this Kutshu Berichu V'Oraise Chadhu is not in the Zoya Mamish. It's brought down in the Ramchal, in the Sefer Adi Bamuroim, and he says, "Behine bezoya omru ki hakodesh baruch hu vater ve'Yisrael echad hu," and he brings down from the Zoya Chodesh Gimel Ayin Gimel. But when you look there, it's actually a little bit different. It doesn't say it mamish like that. He says, "Inun miskashkin do bodog shbrichu oraise ve'Yisrael," but it doesn't say that it is chadhu. This loshen chadhu I have not found in the Zohar itself, unless the Mekoir, which is printed in this version, is wrong. Maybe there is another, but I checked a long time to see if there is such a Zohar. But in any case, it's from the Ramchal. The Ramchal clearly says it, and so therefore, for the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he uses this to explain that there is a kind of an isgashmus that from the Rebbeinu Shalom inside of the Rebbe. So we see that also this is allowed to. Why is this allowed to? Because Moshe Rabbeinu himself as well, as the Kabbalists explain also, V'nosati metar artzachem, he should say V'nosan Hashem. Why does he say V'nosati metar artzachem? The whole Sefer Dvorim was written by Moshe Rabbeinu. It's never Moshe Rabbeinu. It's never Vayemer Hashem el Moshe. It's only the words in the name of Moshe that he himself speaks, and then he says V'nosati metar artzachem. So how can he say V'nosati metar artzachem? Elomai, that the Rebbe, the Kudsha B'richu goes kind of is becoming one, and therefore it is as if when Moshe Rabbeinu can say V'nosati, because he kind of represents and so therefore we are allowed to. So these are Avodah Zorah.
Je peux poser une question, je peux faire une remarque.
Yes.
Si ça c'est le mekoïr du Rebbe, or c'est une forme de panthéisme. C'est pas daf que le Rebbe. Le Kudsha B'richu se trouve dans chaque chose ici sur terre.
Okay.
Mais il est dans le Rebbe aussi.
Ok, mais c'est pas ce qu'il dit. Sinon,
C'est
il aurait
pas
pu
ce qu'il
le dire,
dit, mais
ça serait plus facile à expliquer.
C'est pas ce qu'il dit, mais son mekor ne montre pas que le Rebbe est plus qu'une autre brille.
Non, mais une seconde. No, I want to. So no, again, I said V'nosati metar artzachem. It is because he just brings down from the Zoya. So the idea that he brings down from Kudsha B'richu, Yisrael, ve'oraisa chadhu. And this is the Zoya. And the Zoya does not bring what I just said. I just explained you what I've seen to be able to explain you according to the Kuzari. How can you say that? How can even the Zoya say that? Where do we see that? We see already something. As the Orna Kodesh, why can we in Bes Medrash all daven and we stand up by the Orna Kodesh? We feel we do as if the Orna Kodesh has a special kedusha. The Shechina is there, like we daven to the Orna Kodesh kind of. So how can we do that? So this already the Klal Yisrael. We see already Kumu Hashem and Shuvu Hashem. So when you find something back, then Chazal can allow us to do these type of things. But Eis Tzoyrech when we have to. And so we're allowed to kind of say that there is a particular person like a Rebbe, Talmid Chochem, he is representing kind of the Shechina. We're allowed to do that. And so therefore he says that he explains that the Rebbe and the Kudsha B'richu and the Chassidim, they are all becoming one. But not he doesn't use the concept of everything being that there's this Shechina in everything, because then he doesn't have to. He can say it he could have said it much easier, and that's true for everything. But even in the sin, there is a Kudsha B'richu then. So basically, there is everywhere. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, if you answer my question, je peux comprendre que le Rebbe a employé ce mekor. Mais ce mekor, justement, ce mekor, il est bon pour le Rebbe, mais il est bon pour chaque juif. Chaque juif peut avoir en lui la même force qu'un Rebbe. Je ne vois pas pourquoi le Rebbe est supérieur d'après ce mekor. Chaque juif.
Ouais, okay. You have to. I'll if you want, I can share with you. You can read the whole sikha because it's like a long sikha about it. He continues, he explains, the truth is, I'm sorry, he does say, I'm sorry, is a viele Malach nikre b'shem Havai, oder wie Moshe Rabbeinu hat gesagt, v'nosati Esav. So he does use it as an argument, he does use this as an argument. No, he does. So we see here that because Moshe Rabbeinu is also considered, also Rashpin Bar Yochai, it is already, you have to continue reading you have to read it inside. So I suggest, but we really don't have the time. We're already a quarter of an hour delayed. So basically, the concept. So just to go back to the original, the first we started. So there are three types of Avodah Zorah. You have Avodas Hashem, which is Zorah, which is basically what we are doing today. But because we have no choice, since we are in a dark time, there isn't anything else. We don't have a Mizbeach. We don't have a Beis Hamikdash, we have a Shechina, we don't have Nevi'im, so what should we do? So we daven, and we daven in a Beis Medrash, we daven as if it is a korban 3 times a day. This is be'etzem kind of avodah zorah in the sense that it is something which Hashem did not ask you to do, but Chazal, Anshe Knesset Gdoila, with the Nevi'im, have instituted that, and so it was instituted with the Nevi'im and also our Chazal, which have also koyach to create, and they're allowed to create. And then we have avodas elohim acherim, which are the real gods that have a power. Klal Yisrael is not allowed to, but the people are allowed to. And then you have avodas eis ve'evan, these are the rubbish, which are actually probably also for everybody, not only for the Jews, but also for the Goyim. And basically the Malach says that even the Goyim who are serving Hashem, are serving their gods, are actually also serving Hashem by definition, because they're only serving a God of the gods. So they recognize that there is, of course, a God that have created them, but they want to serve their local national God. We saw then the reason why the Zorah of Avodah Zorah was very strong. For us, it was much more difficult to get what we wanted. For them, it was very easy. And we today have found other solutions like Kemiros and Zgulos. And then we saw that this cleanness that existed stopped by the home of the first Beis Hamikdash, and at some point when it was the last of the Nevi'im, Anshe Knesset Gdoila started to create, and then came Antignos Isoicho, which actually changed the calendar. And also he said that we have to accept the fact that we will not see this anymore. That we kind of, the Jews were in a bit of a panic. What's going on? Our grandfather, our great-grandfather still remembers. We don't see anymore. We don't see anymore. If we make a mitzvah, we don't make a mitzvah, then there's no difference. We make an aver, don't make an aver. It's not like we've been punished straight away. We have to, we don't see Hashem anymore. And so he says that al tiyu kavodim, that don't be anymore. This is accept this new way of Judaism that we are having to believe. It's a belief that if you daven and you make mitzvahs, that eventually you will see good, and otherwise not. But it is not with an instant gratification like clearness. It's going to be always a bit in a hidden form. And this is also the time when the Greek philosophy started. And also the whole avodas Hashem as being Talmud Torah also started off in very much into that time. And then I explained you that the sin of the Egel, the Kuzari, downplays the Avera as being that it is purely to be Megashem Hashem, but actually it's not an Avodah Zorah from the left side, but more an Avodah Zorah from the right side. The Rambam, he explains that to be Megashem Hashem is one of the capital sins. And we said that this was quite a revolutionary idea. And they were banned. They were machrim the Rambam Sforim, which have these parts on it. We explained you why, because otherwise then you don't anymore know if you say everything is a moshel, then maybe other things are also misholim. You can look it up in Torah Shleimo in the second one from Yisro and Sisso. And then I explained you the Chabad, the view of Hasidus typically, where the Rebbe has kind of a play, and when people go there, it's really like there are oil regel, it's mamish feeling of going to see the Shrine and feeling the Shrine when the Rebbe feeds the tish. It's really this need that we have, that we are still yearning what we have originally experienced, and we don't experience it already for so many years, so many thousand years, that we don't experience this clearness, and therefore we are trying to look for little hints and little things, and these are the things that are allowed to, especially as we explained, the Rebbe is allowed to be a little bit more, and also the Or HaKodesh, the Beis Medrash is also allowed to. Although in the time of when it was originally in the Beis Hamikdash, first Beis Hamikdash, as the Kuzar explained, it would have been burned down as being kind of an Avodah Zorah. Next week, I want to explain the Cheto Egel, but not only the Cheto Egel, the whole story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, on why Klal Yisrael continuously wanted to go back. It's strange stories. I mean, what, they wanted to go back? Why was all this whole akshonus, the Kshe Oirev of Klal Yisrael, where does it come from? Why does the Am Kshe Oirev, why is Bechlal called Am Kshe Oirev by going to serve Avodah Zorah, while Be'etzem it's the opposite of Kshe Oirev. Kshe Oirev is somebody who sticks to what he is, and since Nasev and Nishma, why were the dining Avodah Zorah? Why is the Egel and Am Kshe Oirev? The Choire, it's the opposite. So I will explain you a completely different view, beautiful, very, very nice, simple, but very nice, and it's going to explain the whole Sefer Bamidbar as well, in the whole approach of Klal Yisrael. in their doubts and in their reluctancy to come out of Mitzrayim. So I will. I hope. Is there any more questions?
Yes, I was. You said before, like that Chachomim, the Rabbonim got permission. I'm saying they took or got permission to kind of change the Torah to as like their understanding. But what gave them the koyach to say, okay, they'll change it? Like, because maybe the Tzaddikim like kind of had a point. You just come along and decide, okay, from now on you have authority.
Because the problem is we don't have Nevi'im and we have new Shilas coming along, which the Novi never paskent. How will you do? So not all the Shilas were discussed before by a Novi, right? There were new
100%, but it doesn't necessarily give authority to change the Torah. Like I understand what you're saying, but like, okay, is that reason enough to like kind of dismiss the whole? I don't know. I'm just wondering.
No, it's of course they instituted Ansheknes Agdole. Must be at that time there was what we call a Mishnah Rishono. So there was a Mishnah Rishono, and this stayed. And then the Mishnah Rishono came Mishnah Choino, which the last Mishnah, which is the Mishnah from Rabbi. But there was of course certain parts they did not change just for the sake of changing. They only changed when they saw a fit. There is a need to change, like Rabbi Akiva changed an halacha to Araisa that women neither was not allowed to carry a red clothes, and he said no. This because he saw that that the women were getting divorced. He said no, we have to change. The situation changed. We live in a different world, and today women that cannot go with nice dresses when she's a niddah, she will get divorced. So, and as I explained you, this is why the Rabbi Akiva says, not the mitzvah godel bator, but ze klal godel, because this is one of the klolim that when you change, you always have to change on two elements, and also on the moira shomayim. It has to create yiras shomayim. It's not to become easier for the sake of making it easier, but it has to increase yiras shomayim, but it has to also not to make it too difficult. So this is the part of after Rachakomoich, it's a klal as well. And so whatever was needed for the time was allowed to change. This is the Rambam.
With that last part, you answered my second. I was going to ask on the question, like, so what makes it different to Reform? But if it's Dafka, as in, if there has to be after Rachakomoich and yiras shomayim, then that's what separates from the whole Reform movement.
The Reform movement actually, as I explained you last time, a bit provocatively, the Prushim are the biggest reform. So we are the biggest reform. We change continuously, as the Rambam explained. Even today, theoretically we're allowed to change halachas, even the Reisedik halachas. If today somebody Bezdin would decide that you're allowed to blow a shofar with a trumpet, then theoretically they're allowed to. The Kesef Mishnah says that since the Gemara was written, from that moment on, we don't change anything anymore. Sure. So we have kind of a rule, it's an accepted rule, but theoretically we can change and it becomes a new doraisa. This is what the Rambam says. And the idea that, so we are reforming continuously. The only difference is that if the reform, when they wanted to do is then they started to reform further, and in order to decrease the yiras shomayim, decrease the all HaTorah, and to assimilate completely in with the goyim. In that case, of course, this is not v'yi moira shomayim aleichem. So even Antignos says at the end of his Mishnah, v'yi moira shomayim aleichem. So yiras shomayim should still be the driving force of everything that the person is doing and everything that Chazal is doing as well. So aleichem also goes on the Rabbonim, on the how to change, as I explained you. So you have the two forces. Sometimes you have to change after Achkomoicha, but you always have to keep it in the margins of Moira Shomayim.
Okay, it's good.
So, any more questions? Okay. So next week we'll continue. I suggest also 9 o'clock. 1 second, I'm going to start stopping to share. Stop recording.